Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot. Into the universe of Chinese, we are going to continue our year-end special edition about the Chinese ancient wartime wisdom. Okay, hold on. Please bear with me. I'm not familiar with this new Zoom. They upgraded really not to my taste. Okay, so yesterday we talked about Diabolition is to get the main force, the muscle guy of your enemy represented on Fu, to get that force away from the mountain where you're going. You're trying to attack the mountain, but with the tiger there, you cannot. You don't want to confront the tiger directly. So what you do is to lure it away. So the strategy here is to distract or create confusion, to confuse your enemy, to misplace the resource to somewhere else. Well, then you have a gap to attack. Okay, 李代桃僵. Okay, 李代桃僵 is our another strategy. Again, we use some symbols that's not it's not that direct, but it's two type of fruits, li and tao. We have li comes from this tree symbol or plant or tree symbol that with upward turning and downward turning arches connected with a vertical line. That's our tree, generic tree symbol. And then we have this circle with two upholding hands. That's our baby symbol. It's kind of pick me up position of that baby, right? So it's the fruit, the baby from a tree. That's the original meaning of li. And then eventually this was used to a particular type of fruit. It's plum. Tao, we have this again tree symbol, but it's placed on the side. So you can see the same structure, but different proportion of vertical and horizontal length, right? So this is squished to the side, same thing, tree-based. And then this is the sound maker, but at the same time, I think it also captured the main feature of this peach. Because here, the sign is used to describe the fraction on the shells, because before the turquoise shell was the main preserved knowledge source in ancient times. We don't, like before the paper was invented, right? How to pass your wisdom or the knowledge gained in your generation to the later generations. Oral history can only do so much, right? So how to leave things behind before you even have computer servers to store information, right? You use turquoise shell. And the turquoise shell, that's our beginning of our recorded characters. A lot of characters came from there, that source. And then here is describing the fracture on this turquoise shell that could be used to interpret the divine meaning. So that kind of irregular pattern shown on the turquoise shell used to kind of, as us humans try to read into the mind of the universe, right? So eventually this shell that becomes a symbol, a cultural symbol for us to try to interpret the divine message by reading these fractures on the shell. And this fracturing, cracking on the surface paired with the tree symbol to describe peach. I'll show you in the next slide what that is. Okay, so we often pair li and tao together, this type of two commonly consumed fruits in Chinese culture, often use them together to kind of symbolize brotherhood because they are kind of close, but they have their distinctive flavors. But they're both fruits in the same category. So they often pair together to mean something kind of like a brotherhood or some sort of a cohort. They graduate from the same harvesting year, so to speak. So we often pair Tao and Li together. And again, in this case, something Li does for Tao is to replace Tao to get stiff. Okay, so replace, okay. We have replaced this human figure, generic human figure. So sometimes write this way, sometimes when it's put aside, it's written this way. And the right side is gu, again, it's a weaponry. You can see a lot of pointy edges there. It doesn't look benign, right? It's something very aggressive in wartime use. So it's almost like somebody used this as a defense or weaponry, right? So in my imagination now, I have to interpret how this human figure, generic human figure, plus this weaponry together, it means replace. So I would view it, this weaponry, as the guard. Whoever is on guard at the time have to use this weapon, and the weapon stay, and the person replace the previous shift. So a new guard show up holding the same spot or weaponry or some kind of a defense, system there to manpower operate, right? To keep guard of things, but the weapon is still there, the defense system or equipment still there, but the person have to take shifts to do that because we can only last, I don't know, 20 hours max and then pass out. So that's the limitation of humans. So in this sense of one takes another's shift, that's the replace. Okay, so jiang. Again, we have the side place to human figure. So it's something related to human. And then the right side is this borderline. So we talked about tian symbol before. So it's a block. So that means it's a field, a space, and then it cut horizontal, vertical into 4 quadrants, right? So that's our land distribution, like allotted land. So cut a bigger piece of land into smaller segments so that each household or each farming units take care of their own little lot. So that becomes like a farm field. It's segregated. It could be like segregated by the type of plant on each plot, or it could be segregated by different household or farming economic entity, right? They don't mix. This is mine, this is yours. So they're kind of borders. And then the bigger horizontal lines simply means bigger borders. So imagine this is one country, this is another country. Even within each country, there are farmlands, and like within farmlands, there are smaller units of each land. So this is a very simplified aerial view of how the organizations or how the borders in a piece of land is cut up. The land is land, right? The land doesn't have the concept of borders. It's the humans, the society living on top of the land that kind of cut the land into pieces, right? So between the horizontal lines are different countries or regimes, and between this and within the same regime, they're even further cut up of the land between households. So that's the main, composition of how society organized for a farming society, especially. So that border, the borderline paired with human figure, how that becomes stiff. We can kind of extrapolate. So over here is my imagination again, is, okay, the borderline between countries are kind of stiff, right? You cannot easily change it at will. To change a borderline between countries, you have to have a war or something like that, right? At a great cost. then the line can be redrawn. But before then, it's a pretty well-guarded, well-drawn, stiff line, right? And the stiffness paired with people to describe human behavior, it means the person fall backwards, stiff in straight line. I imagine try to fall back in a straight line. Can you do that? Unless we train ourselves to do that, it's unnatural to fall in one straight line backwards, right? Our protective mechanism will hold us, like your hand definitely, and your body will kind of curve or something, right? So who fall back like that? Zombies. So it's a dead person who doesn't really who lose the sense of pain or doesn't really behave like a person anymore. Zombies, stiff, will fall back in a straight line. So that's kind of stiff falling. So eventually the stiff falling, if somebody do that, that's an indicator of that person is no longer regular human being, becomes zombie or simply died. So 李代桃僵 simply means 李 plum replace the peach to die. So plum sacrifice itself so that peach can survive, but plum gets stiff. Okay, pretty dramatic, right? But over there, it simply means you as a military strategist, when you're placing your resources, in time of threat, you are going to preserve the bigger fruit, which is the peach. You're going to protect that more important resource for yourself. And in its place, sacrifice the plum for the sake of keeping the peach so that you have a better chance. You still preserve as much as possible your resources in time of need, right? So that's 李代桃僵. That's the, the strategy they have to. Sometimes some people, who are plum regarded in the situation have to sacrifice for the benefit of the win of the whole thing. So we see that before, right? In wartime movies, 李代桃僵 actually carried out in a movie plot a lot. So it's people who are left behind, a smaller group, and they try to block the enemy as long as possible so that majority of the people, the army, can retreat and survive. And that's our 李代桃僵. Okay, so this simply means sacrifice a smaller portion for the survival of the bigger portion of your army. And okay, I'm here showing you why Tao is formed by a plant symbol plus this fracturing on the turquoise. It's because Tao on the surface, well, this is my, okay, plot me, plot. I don't know if I can draw like that before, but that's exactly 10 years ago. I had taken some drawing class, and as one of the challenges of drawing, to draw a fruit, right? So I spent quite some time sitting in front of the peach, trying to render it out on a two-dimensional world. And then while drawing, drawing is a training to your eyes to really see the patterns on it, right? Normally when we look at a peach, we don't really see the patterns below the surface, the fluffy surface, right? We don't really see the pattern there, but because I have to draw it out, and because it's black and white, it makes the pattern even more obvious. So this is kind of fracturing these irregular patterns shown on the surface of the peach. And this is corresponding to the 照, that concept, this fracturing on the turquoise surface, plus the plant symbol that combined together is the main feature of what that plant it looks like. It looks like this. So that's the fruit of peach. And Often I told you Tao and Li pair together in our language because these are two typical fruits, and often we say Tao Li Man Tian Xia. Okay, ancient Chinese we read from right to left. Tao Li, which is Tao and Li. Man Tian Xia means all over the world. So once a year, I believe it's September 10th, is Teachers' Day. So in China, we respect teacher a lot. And that's the phrase, the catchphrase every year for Teachers' Day. We will congratulate teachers because they raise generations of students. They're Tao and Li, they're peaches and plums, and they are eventually going to go to different places, positions, take different jobs, and they are going to spread all over the world. And so that gives the sense of accomplishment over time, over a lifetime of teachers' career. It's the students of the teacher are going to, become peach or plum, and they are going to spread all over the world. So that's the concept of 桃李满天下. And here is contemporary Chinese. So traditional read right to left, contemporary, we follow the more global standard sequence of reading, which is left to right. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Your eyeball reading, moving this way or that way doesn't really matter. It's really a habit. And there's no, just justification, then it's a habit. It's just somebody says so, started a trend, and then the whole population follows. So now I think the only, as far as I know, the only right to left sequencing of reading is Arabic. Other languages, even Chinese, would traditionally read right to left. Now we convert to the global standard, left to right. Okay, 李代桃僵. Passion to the currency of thinking by one word a day. See you another day.